and welcome to week 15 of Run Club. I hope you are enjoying spring break after Easter, and just what a great Easter celebration that we got to share as a church. Again, we are doing 3 weeks of Easter, so we have 2 more weeks to continue to celebrate the resurrection and redemption and freedom of life in Christ together, and I'm really looking forward to being able to celebrate together. I wanted to take a few minutes just to encourage you to keep running through the Bible. And we just finished up the book of Judges. And if you remember, the book of Judges had this downward spiral of the people who said they were going to follow God, and they ended up forgetting him and their ways, doing everything that was right in their own eyes. And then we turn the page into the book of Ruth, and we get this redemption story. And one of the ladies that's in my group that likes to text back and forth to each other, she says this. She says, "Oh my goodness, the redemptive book of Ruth was such a blessing to me after the book of Judges." And I couldn't agree more. Ruth really reminds us that when life feels uncertain or unfair or vulnerable, that God's mercy protects. And if you remember, we're in this quarter about God's mercy. God's mercy is not getting what we deserve. And again, God's grace is getting what we don't deserve. And what a better time to celebrate those two things than at Easter time. I just kind of wanted to show you a picture of when I think of God's protective mercy. I think of this picture. It's actually a picture that I shared on Facebook after my mom passed away in 2020, because she was an embodiment of God's protective mercy in my own life. It's this image of a bird with its children underneath her wings. It's that in this embrace, her children are loved, valued, protected, even disciplined. And it's exactly how my mom made me feel, and everyone around her. It's a way of being that I really aspire to carry forward in my own life. And when I think about it spiritually, it's also how God's mercy works in our lives. Psalm 63:7 says, "Because you are my help, I sing in the shadow of your wings." That underneath his wings, we are protected by his mercy. He holds us, he protects us, he strengthens us, even when there's storms in life going on. And that's exactly where we find Ruth in her story. Naomi, her husband, dies, and then her 2 sons die, which leaves her with these 2 daughter-in-laws. And she turns to them and says, "You can go back with your own people. There's nothing for you here with me." But Ruth, her daughter-in-law, decides to stay. She's loyal to Naomi. She doesn't want to leave Naomi just stranded on her own. They're going to take care of one another. And they go back to Naomi's homeland in Israel. And Ruth makes this declaration that your people are going to be my people, and your God is going to be my God. And this Moabite woman decides that she is going to become a part of Naomi's permanent family. And then moving on, it's really cool. We see this story kind of occur between Ruth and Boaz. Boaz is a farmer, and he owns these fields. And if we remember from our readings back in Deuteronomy, the people were instructed not to hoard all of the resources for themselves, but to leave the edges of their field for foreigners to be able to have something to eat. And so Boaz is an honorable man. He's done just that. And that's where we find Ruth gathering food for her and Naomi. Boaz learns about Ruth, learns more about her story. It kind of unfolds a little bit further. Ruth even is bold enough to ask Boaz to be their family redeemer, to marry her, and to start a new family line together. And through some circumstances, that ends up happening. And the really cool thing about their story is this sets up the lineage of King David, which eventually leads to the lineage of King Jesus. That God is working his redemptive plan through the obedience and through the protective mercy of Ruth and her family tree. And I don't know about you, but sometimes we find ourselves in these vulnerable places where we are exposed and life just stinks, because sometimes it does. Storms happen and the world is just not how it's supposed to be. We don't live in Eden any longer. But here's the truth: when we draw near to God, He draws near to us. He doesn't magically remove every single storm, and He doesn't make everything happen for a reason. Life can still be messy and confusing and painful. And yet, even when we experience the rain, like the psalm says, we can be singing underneath the shadow or the protection of His wings. Probably through some tears, but underneath the protection of His wings. Under His wings, we experience His protective mercy. We are held, we are comforted, we are loved, even when life isn't fair, even when the storm continues. God's mercy doesn't always fix the situation, but it gives refuge and strength and hope, even as we walk through it. So, as we continue celebrating Easter this week, as you come to worship, just remember Ruth's story as we celebrate King Jesus and the freedom and the redemption that we have in Him, that God was weaving this story all the way back in the beginning with Ruth's story and in her mundane daily obedience and loyalty. That under His wings we experience His protective mercy. We are held, we are protected, we are a part of a story that is far bigger than us. So again, keep reading. We're going to be heading into the book of 1 Samuel, which is starting to teach us about King David and all that goes on with him, and how God is continuing to set up His redemptive story through Christ. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to celebrating Easter with you for another couple of weeks. Have a great week.